Poisson Jaune by George W. Cable. From Old Creole Days, copyrighted 1879, 1881, 1883, by Charles Scribner's Sons. To Jules Saint-Ange, elegant little heathen, there yet remained at manhood a remembrance of having been to school, and of having been taught by a stony-headed Capuchin that the world is round, for example, like a cheese. This round world is a cheese to be eaten through, and Jules had nibbled quite into his cheese world already at 22. He realized this as he idled about one Sunday morning, where the intersection of Royal and Conti streets some 70 years ago formed a central corner of New Orleans. Yes, the trouble was he had been wasteful and honest. He discussed the matter with that faithful friend and confidant, Baptiste, his yellow body servant. They concluded that Papa's patience and Tante's pin money having been gnawed away quite to the rind, there were left open only these few easily enumerated resorts. To go to work, they shuddered. To join Major Innerarity's filibustering expedition, or else, why not, to try some games of confidence. At 22, one must begin to be something. Nothing else tempted. Could that avail? One could but try. It is noble to try, and besides, they were hungry. If one could make the friendship of some person from the country, for instance, with money, not expert at cards or dice, but, as one would say, willing to learn, one might find cause to say some Hail Marys. The sun broke through a clearing sky, and Baptiste pronounced it good for luck. There had been a hurricane in the night. The weed-grown tile roofs were still dripping, and from lofty brick and low adobe walls a rising steam responded to the summer sunlight. Up street, and across the Rue du Canal, one could get glimpses of the gardens in Faubourg Sainte-Marie standing in silent wretchedness, so many tearful Lucretias, tattered victims of the storm. Short remnants of the wind now and then came down the narrow street in erratic puffs, heavily laden with odors of broken boughs and torn flowers, skimmed the little pools of rain-water in the deep ruts of the unpaved street, and suddenly went away to nothing, like a juggler's butterflies or a young man's money. It was very picturesque, the Rue Royale. The rich and poor met together. The locksmith's swinging key creaked next door to the bank. Across the way, crouching mendicant-like in the shadow of a great importing house, was the mud laboratory of the mender of broken combs. Light balconies overhung the rows of showy shops and stores open for trade this Sunday morning, and pretty Latin faces of the higher class glanced over their savagely pronged railings upon the passers below. At some windows hung lace curtains, flannel duds at some, and at others only the scraping and sighing one-hinged shutter groaning toward Paris after its neglectful master. Monsieur Saint-Ange stood looking up and down the street for nearly an hour. But few ladies, only the inveterate mass-goers, were out. About the entrance of the frequent cafes, the masculine gentility stood leaning on canes, with which now one and now another beckoned to Jules, some even adding pantomimic hints of the social cup. Monsieur Saint-Ange remarked to his servant without turning his head that somehow he felt sure he should soon return those bonds that the mulatto had lent him. "What will you do with them?" "Me?" said Baptiste quickly. "I will go and see the bullfight in the Place Congo." "There is to be a bullfight? But where is Monsieur Cayetano?" "Ah, got all his affairs wet in the tornado. Instead of his circus, they are to have a bullfight, not an ordinary bullfight with sick horses, but a buffalo and tiger fight. I would not miss it. 2 or 3 persons ran to the opposite corner, and commenced striking at something with their canes. Others followed. Can Monsieur St-Ange and servant, who hastened forward, can the Creoles, Cubans, Spaniards, San Domingo refugees, and other loungers, can they hope it is a fight? They hurry forward. Is a man in a fit? The crowd pours in from the side streets. Have they killed a so-long snake? Bareheaded shopmen leave their wives, who stand upon chairs. The crowd huddles and packs. Those on the outside make little leaps into the air, trying to be tall. What is the matter? Have they caught a real live rat? Who is hurt? Asks someone in English. Personne, replies a shopkeeper. A man's hat blow in the gutter, but he has it now. Jules Pickett. See, that is the man, head and shoulders on top of the rest. He in the homespun? Asks a second shopkeeper. Humph, an American, a West Floridian. Bah! But wait! Psst, he is speaking. Listen. To who is he speak? Shh, shh, shh. To Jules. Jules who? Silence, you. To Jules St-Ange, what how me a bill since long time. Shh, shh, shh. Then the voice was heard. Its owner was a man of giant stature, with a slight stoop in his shoulders, as if he was making a constant, good-natured attempt to accommodate himself to ordinary doors and ceilings. His bones were those of an ox. His face was marked more by weather than age, and his narrow brow was bald and smooth. He had instantaneously formed an opinion of Jules St-Ange, and the multitude of words, most of them lingual curiosities, with which he was rasping the wide-open ears of his listeners, signified, in short, that as sure as his name was Parson Jones, the little Creole was a plum gentleman. Monsieur St-Ange bowed and smiled, and was about to call attention, by both gesture and speech, to a singular object on top of the still uncovered head, when the nervous motion of the Américain anticipated him, as, throwing up an immense hand, he drew down a large roll of banknotes. The crowd laughed, the West Floridian joining, and began to disperse. Why, that money belongs to Smyrna Church, said the giant. You are very dangerous to make your money expose like that, Misty Poisson Jaune, said St-Ange, counting it with his eyes. The countryman gave a start and smile of surprise. How'd you know my name was Jones? He asked, but, without pausing for the Creole's answer, furnished in his reckless way some further specimens of West Floridian English, and the conciseness with which he presented full intelligence of his home, family, calling, lodging-house, and present and future plans might have passed for consummate art had it not been the most run-wild nature. And I've done been to Mobile, you know, on business for Bethesda Church. It's the onliest time I ever been from home. Now, you wouldn't have believed that, would you? But I admire to have saw you, that's so. You've got to come and eat with me. Me and my boy ain't been fed yet. What might one call your name? Jules? Come on, Jules. Come on, Colossus. That's my nigger. His name's Colossus of Rhodes. Is that your yalla boy, Jules? Fetch him along, Colossus. It seems like a special providence. Jules, do you believe in a special providence? Jules said he did. The new-made friends moved briskly off, followed by Baptiste and a short, square old Negro, very black and grotesque, who had introduced himself to the mulatto with many glittering and cavernous smiles as the body servant of the Reverend Mr. Jones. Both pairs enlivened their walk with conversation. Parson Jones descanted upon the doctrine he had mentioned, as illustrated in the perplexities of cotton growing, and concluded that there would always be a special providence again cotton until folks quits a pressin' of it and haulin' of it on Sundays. "Je dis," said St. Ange in response, "I think you is just right. I believe me strong in the improvidence, yes. You know my papa, he own a sugar plantation, you know. Jules, me son, he say one time to me, I goin' to make 1 baril sugar to fetch the most high price in New Orleans. Well, he take his best baril sugar. I never see a so careful man like me papa, always to make a so beautiful sugar as syrup. Jules, go at Father Pierre and get this little pitcher filled with holy water, and tell him send his tin bucket, and I will make it fill with kit. I get the holy water, my papa sprinkle it over the barrel, and make 1 cross on the head of the barrel." "Why, Jules," said Parson Jones, "that didn't do no good." "Didn't do no good. It brought the so great value. You can strike me dead if that barrel sugar didn't fetch the most high cost than any other in the city. Parce que the man what buy that barrel sugar, he make a mistake of 100 pound, falling back. Mais certainly." "And you think that was growing out of the holy water?" asked the parson. "Mais what could make it else? It could not be the kit, because my papa keep the bucket, and forget to send the kit to Father Pierre." Parson Jones was disappointed. "Well now, Jules, you know, I don't think that was right. I reckon you must be a plumb Catholic." Monsieur St. Ange shrugged. He would not deny his faith. "I am a Catholique, mais," brightening, as he hoped to recommend himself anew, "not a good one." "Well, you know," said Jones, "where's Colossus?" "Oh, all right. Colossus strayed off a minute in Mobile, and I plumb lost him for 2 days. Here's the place. Come in. Colossus and this boy can go to the kitchen. Now, Colossus, what air you a beckoning at me for?" He let his servant draw him aside and address him in a whisper. "Oh, go away," said the parson with a jerk. "Who's going to throw me? What? Speak louder. Why, Colossus, you shan't talk so, saw. 'Pon my soul, you're the mightiest fool I ever taken up with. Just you go down that alleyway with this yalla boy, and don't show your face until you're called." The Negro begged. The master wrathily insisted. "Colossus, will you do as I tell you, or shall I have to strike you, saw?" "Oh, Mas Jimmy, I's gwine, but," he ventured nearer. "Don't on no account drink nothin', Mas Jimmy." Such was the Negro's earnestness that he put 1 foot in the gutter and fell heavily against his master. The parson threw him off angrily. "Thar now! Why, Colossus, you must have been dusted with somethin'. You're plumb crazy. Humph! Come on, Jules, let's eat. Humph! To tell me that, when I never taken a drop, exceptin' for chills, in my life, which he knows so as well as me." The 2 masters began to ascend the stair. "Mais he is a sassy. I would sell him me," said the young Creole. "No, I wouldn't do that," replied the parson, "though there is people in Bethesdy who says he is a rascal. He's a powerful smart fool. Why, that boy's got money, Jules, more money than religion, I reckon. I'm sure he fallen into mighty bad company." They passed beyond earshot. Baptiste and Colossus, instead of going to the tavern kitchen, passed to the next door and entered the dark rear corner of a low grocery, where, the law notwithstanding, liquor was covertly sold to slaves. There, in the quiet company of Baptiste and the grocer, the colloquial powers of Colossus, which were simply prodigious, began very soon to show themselves. "For whilst," said he, "Mas Jimmy has education, you know, whilst he has education, I has scretion. He has education and I has scretion, and so we gets along." He drew a black bottle down the counter, and laying half his length upon the damp board, continued, "As a principle, I discredits the imbibement of odious liquors. The imbibement of odious liquors, the violation of the Sabbath, the playing of the fiddle, and the using of bywords, they is the four sins of the conscience. And if any man seen the four sins of the conscience, the devil done sharpest fork for that man. Ain't that so, boss?" The grocer was sure it was so. "Nevertheless, mind you," here the orator brimmed his glass from the bottle and swallowed the contents with a dry eye, "mind you, a righteous man, such as ministers of the gospel and their body servants, can take a little for the weak stomach." But the fascinations of Colossus' eloquence must not mislead us. This is the story of a true Christian, to wit, Parson Jones. The parson and his new friend ate. But the coffee Monsieur St-Ange declared he could not touch. It was too wretchedly bad. At the French market near by there was some noble coffee. This, however, would have to be bought, and Parson Jones had scruples. "You see, Jules, every man has his conscience to guide him, which it does so in—" "Oh, yes," cried St-Ange, "conscient, that is the best, Parson Jones. Certainly, I am Catholic, you is a schismatic. You think it is wrong to drink some coffee. Well then, it is wrong. You think it is wrong to make the sugar to get the so large price. Well then, it is wrong. I think it is right. Well then, it is right. It is all habit, c'est tout. What a man think is right. 'Tis all habit. A man must not go against his conscience. My faith, do you think I would go against my conscience? Mais allons, let us go and get some coffee." "Jules." "What?" "Jules, it ain't the drinking of coffee, but the buying of it on a Sabbath. You must really excuse me, Jules. It's against conscience, you know." "Ah," said St-Ange, "c'est very true. For you it would be a sin. Mais for me, it is only habit. Religion is a very strange. I know a man one time, he think it was wrong to go cockfight Sunday evening. I think it is all habit. Mais come, Parson Jones, I have got one friend, Miguel. Let us go at his house and get some coffee. Come, Miguel have no family, only him and Joe. Always like to see friend. Allons, let us come yonder." "Why, Jules, my dear friend, you know," said the shamefaced parson, "I never visit on Sundays." "Never what?" asked the astounded Creole. "No," said Jones, smiling awkwardly. "Never visit?" "Excepting sometimes amongst church members," said Parson Jones. "Mais," said the seductive St-Ange, "Miguel and Joe is church member, certainly. They love to talk about religion. Come at Miguel and talk about some religion. I am nearly expire for me coffee." Parson Jones took his hat from beneath his chair and rose up. Jules, said the weak giant, I ought to be in church right now. Mais the church is right yonder at Miguel, yes. Ah, continued St. Ange as they descended the stairs, I think every man must have the religion he likes the best. Me, I like the Catholic religion the best. For me, it is the best. Every man will sure go to heaven if he like his religion the best. Jules, said the West Floridian, laying his great hand tenderly upon the Creole's shoulder as they stepped out upon the banquette, do you think you have any sure hopes of heaven? Yes, replied St. Ange, I am sure. I think everybody will go to heaven. I think you will go, I think Miguel will go, Joe, everybody, I think. Mais, of course, not if they not have been christened. Even, I think, some niggers will go. Jules, said the parson, stopping in his walk, Jules, I don't want to lose my nigger. You will not lose him. With Baptiste he cannot get loose. But Colossus' master was not reassured. Now, said he, still tarrying, this is just the way. Had I have gone to church... Poisson jaune, said Jules. What? I tell you, we go into church. Will you? asked Jones joyously. Allons, come along, said Jules, taking his elbow. They walked down the Rue Chartres, passed several corners, and by turned into a cross street. The parson stopped an instant as they were turning, and looked back up the street. What you lookin'? asked his companion. I thought I saw Colossus, answered the parson with an anxious face. I reckon 'twa'n't him, though. And they went on. The street they now entered was a very quiet one. The eye of any chance passer would have been at once drawn to a broad, heavy, white brick edifice on the lower side of the way, with a flagpole standing out like a bowsprit from one of its great windows, and a pair of lamps hanging before a large closed entrance. It was a theatre, honeycombed with gambling dens. At this morning hour all was still, and the only sign of life was a knot of little barefoot girls gathered within its narrow shade, and each carrying an infant relative. Into this place the parson and Monsieur St. Ange entered, the little nurses jumping up from the sills to let them pass in. A half-hour may have passed. At the end of that time, the whole juvenile company were laying alternate eyes and ears to the chinks, to gather what they could of an interesting quarrel going on within. I did not, sir. I given you no cause of offense, sir. It's not so, sir. Mr. Jules simply mistaken the house, thinking it was a Sabbath school. No such thing, sir. I ain't bound to bet. Yes, I can get out. Yes, without betting. I have a right to my opinion. I reckon I'm a white man, sir. No, sir. I only said I didn't think you could get the game on them cards. No such thing, sir. I do not know how to play. I wouldn't have a rascal's money if I should win it. Shoot if you dare. You can kill me, but you can't scare me. No, I shan't bet. I'll die first. Yes, sir. Mr. Jules can bet for me if he admires to. I ain't his master. Here the speaker seemed to direct his words to St. Ange. Sir, I don't understand you, sir. I never said I'd loan you money to bet for me. I didn't suspicion this from you, sir. No, I won't take any more lemonade. It's the most notorious stuff I ever drank, sir. Monsieur St. Ange's replies were in falsetto, and not without effect, for presently the parson's indignation and anger began to melt. Don't ask me, Jules. I can't help you. It's no use. It's a matter of conscience with me, Jules.
Mais oui, 'tis a matter of conscience with me, the same.
But, Jules, the money's none o' mine, nohow. It belongs to Smyrny, you know.
If I could make just one bet, said the persuasive St. Ange, I would leave this place, pass, yes. If I had think, mais I did not suspicion this from you, Posson Jaune.
Don't, Jules, don't.
No, Posson Jaune.
You're bound to win? Said the parson, wavering.
Mais certainement. But it is not to win that I want. 'Tis me conscience, me honor.
Well, Jules, I hope I'm not a-doing no wrong. I'll loan you some of this money if you say you'll come right out 'thout taking your winnin's.
All was still. The peeping children could see the parson as he lifted his hand to his breast pocket.
There it paused a moment in bewilderment, then plunged to the bottom. It came back empty and fell lifelessly at his side. His head dropped upon his breast, his eyes were for a moment closed, his broad palms were lifted and pressed against his forehead. A tremor seized him, and he fell all in a lump to the floor. The children ran off with their infant loads, leaving Jules St. Ange swearing by all his deceased relatives, first to Miguel and Joe, and then to the lifted parson, that he did not know what had become of the money, except if the black man had got it. In the rear of ancient New Orleans, beyond the sites of the old rampart, a trio of Spanish forts, where the town has since sprung up and grown old, green with all the luxuriance of the wild Creole summer, lay the Congo Plains. Here stretched the canvas of the historic Cayetano, who, Sunday after Sunday, sowed the sawdust for his circus ring. But today the great showman had fallen short of his printed promise. The hurricane had come by night, and with one fell swash had made an irretrievable sop of everything. The circus trailed away its bedraggled magnificence, and the ring was cleared for the bull. Then the sun seemed to come out and work for the people. "See," said the Spaniards, looking up at the glorious sky with its great white fleets drawn off upon the horizon. "See, heaven smiles upon the bullfight." In the high upper seats of the rude amphitheater sat the gaily decked wives and daughters of the Gascons. From the métairies along the ridge and the chattering Spanish women of the market, their shining hair unbonneted to the sun. Next, below, were their husbands and lovers in Sunday blouses, milkmen, butchers, bakers, black-bearded fishermen, Sicilian fruiterers, swarthy Portuguese sailors in little woolen caps, and strangers of the graver sort, mariners of England, Germany, and Holland. The lowest seats were full of trappers, smugglers, Canadian voyageurs, drinking and singing, Américains too, more's the shame, from the upper rivers, who will not keep their seats, who ply the bottle, and who will get home by and by and tell how wicked Sodom is. Broad-brimmed, silver-braided Mexicans, too, with their copper cheeks and bat's eyes, and their tinkling spurred heels. Yonder, in that quieter section, are the quadroon women in their black lace shawls. And there is Baptiste, and below them are the turbaned black women, and there is, but he vanishes, Colossus. The afternoon is advancing, yet the sport, though loudly demanded, does not begin. The Américains grow derisive, and find pastime in jibes and raillery. They mock the various Latins with their national inflections, and answer their scowls with laughter. Some of the more aggressive shout pretty French greetings to the women of Gascony, and one bargeman, amid peals of applause, stands on a seat and hurls a kiss to the quadroons. The Marines of England, Germany, and Holland, as spectators, like the fun, while the Spaniards look black and cast defiant imprecations upon their persecutors. Some Gascons, with timely caution, pick their women out and depart, running a terrible fire of gallantries. In hope of truce, a new call is raised for the bull. The bull! The bull! Hush! In a tier near the ground, a man is standing and calling, standing head and shoulders above the rest, calling in the Americaine tongue. Another man, big and red, named Joe, and a handsome little Creole in elegant dress and full of laughter, wish to stop him, but the flat boatmen, ha-hawing and cheering, will not suffer it. Ah! Through some shameful knavery of the man into whose hands he has fallen, he is drunk. Even the women can see that. And now he throws his arms wildly and raises his voice until the whole great circle hears it. He is preaching. Ah, kind Lord, for a special providence now. The men of his own nation, men from the land of the open English Bible and the temperance cup and song, are cheering him on to mad disgrace. And now another call for the appointed sport is drowned by the flat boatmen singing the ancient tune of Mere. You can hear the words. Old Grimes is dead, that good old soul, from ribald lips and throats turned brazen with laughter, from singers who toss their hats aloft and roll in their seats. The chorus swells to the accompaniment of 1,000 brogans. He used to wear an old grey coat, all buttoned down before. A ribboned man in the arena is trying to be heard, and the Latins raise one mighty cry for silence. The big red man gets a hand over the parson's mouth, and the ribboned man seizes his moment. They have been endeavoring for hours, he says, to draw the terrible animals from their dens, but such is their strength and fierceness that... His voice is drowned. Enough has been heard to warrant the inference that the beasts cannot be whipped out of the storm-drenched cages to which menagerie life and long starvation have attached them. And from the roar of indignation, the man of ribbons flies. The noise increases. Men are standing up by hundreds, and women are imploring to be let out of the turmoil. All at once, like the bursting of a dam, the whole mass pours down into the ring. They sweep across the arena and over the showmen's barriers. Miguel gets a frightful trampling. Who cares for gates or doors? They tear the beasts' houses, bar from bar, and laying hold of the gaunt buffalo, drag him forth by feet, ears, and tail. And in the midst of the melee, still head and shoulders above all, wilder with the cup of the wicked than any beast, is the man of God from the Florida parishes. In his arms he bore, and all the people shouted at once when they saw it, the tiger. He had lifted it high up with its back to his breast, his arms clasped under its shoulders. The wretched brute had curled up caterpillar-wise with its long tail against its belly, and through its filed teeth grinned a fixed and impotent wrath. And Parson Jones was shouting, "The tiger and the buffalo shall lay down together. You da to say they shan't, and I comb you with this varmint from head to foot. The tiger and the buffalo shall lay down together. They shall. Now you, Joe, behold, I am here to see it done. The lion and the buffalo shall lay down together." Mouthing these words again and again, the parson forced his way through the surge in the wake of the buffalo. This creature the Latins had secured by a lariat over his head, and were dragging across the old rampart and into a street of the city. The northern races were trying to prevent, and there was pummeling and knocking down, cursing and knife drawing, until Jules St. Ange was quite carried away with the fun, laughed, clapped his hands, and swore with delight, and ever kept close to the gallant parson. Joe, contrariwise, counted all this child's play an interruption. He had come to find Colossus and the money. In an unlucky moment, he made bold to lay hold of the parson, but a piece of the broken barriers in the hands of a flat boatman felled him to the sod. The terrible crowd swept over him, the lariat was cut, and the giant parson hurled the tiger upon the buffalo's back. In another instant, both brutes were dead at the hands of the mob. Jones was lifted from his feet, and prating of Scripture and the millennium, of Paul at Ephesus and Daniel in the buffalo's den, was borne aloft upon the shoulders of the huzzaing Américain. Half an hour later, he was sleeping heavily on the floor of a cell in the calaboza. When Parson Jones awoke, a bell was somewhere tolling for midnight. Somebody was at the door of his cell with a key. The lock grated, the door swung, the turnkey looked in and stepped back, and a ray of moonlight fell upon Monsieur Jules St. Ange. The prisoner sat upon the empty shackles and ring bolt in the center of the floor. "Monsieur Poisson Jaune," said the visitor softly. "Oh, Jules! Mais what the matter, Poisson Jaune?" "My sins, Jules, my sins." "Ah, Poisson Jaune, is that something to cry because a man gets sometime a little bit intoxicate? Mais if a man keep all the time intoxicate, I think that is again the conscience." "Jules, Jules, your eyes is darkened. Oh, Jules, where's my poor old nigger?" "Poisson Jaune, never mind. He is with Baptiste." "Where?" "I don't know where, mais he is with Baptiste. Baptiste is a beautiful to take care of somebody." "Is he as good as you, Jules?" asked Parson Jones sincerely. Jules was slightly staggered. "You know, Poisson Jaune, you know, a nigger cannot be good as a white man, mais Baptiste is a good nigger." The parson moaned and dropped his chin into his hands. "I was to have left for home tomorrow, sun up, on the Isabella schooner. Poor Smyrny!" He deeply sighed. "Poisson Jaune," said Jules, leaning against the wall and smiling, "I swear you is the most funny man I ever see. If I was you, I would say, me, ah, how I am lucky! The money I lost, it was not mine anyhow. My faith, shall a man make himself to be the more sorry because the money he lost is not his? Me, I would say, it is a specious providence. Ah, Mr. Poisson Jaune," he continued, "you make a so droll sermon at the bull ring. Ha, ha! I swear, I think you can make money to preach that sermon many time at the Theatre Saint-Philippe. Ha! You is the most brave that I never see, mais at the same time the most religious man. Where I'm going to find one priest to make like that? Mais why you can't cheer up and be happy? Me, if I should be miserable like that, I would kill myself." The countryman only shook his head. "Bien, Poisson Jaune, I have the so good news for you." The prisoner looked up with eager inquiry. "Last evening when they lock you, I come right off at Monsieur de Blanc's house to get you let out of the calaboose. Monsieur de Blanc, he is the judge. So soon I was entering, ah, Jules, me boy, just the man to make complete the game. Poisson Jaune, it was a specious providence.
I win in 3 hours more than $600. Look! He produced a mass of banknotes, bonds, and due bills. And you got the pass? Asked the parson, regarding the money with a sadness incomprehensible to Jules. It is here. It take the effect so soon the daylight. Jules, my friend, your kindness is in vain. The Creole's face became a perfect blank. Because, said the parson, for 2 reasons. Firstly, I have broken the laws and ought to stand the penalty. And secondly, you must really excuse me, Jules, you know, but the pass has been got unfairly, I'm afeard. You told the judge I was innocent, and in neither case it don't become a Christian, which I hope I can still say I am one, to do evil that good may come. I must stay. Monsieur St-Ange stood up aghast and for a moment speechless at this exhibition of moral heroism. But an artifice was presently hit upon. Mais poisson jaune, in his old falsetto, the order, you cannot read it, it is in French, compel you to go out, sir. Is that so? Cried the parson, bounding up with radiant face. Is that so, Jules? The young man nodded, smiling, but though he smiled, the fountain of his tenderness was opened. He made the sign of the cross as the parson knelt in prayer, and even whispered Hail Mary, etc., quite through, twice over. Morning broke in the summer glory upon a cluster of villas behind the city, nestled under live oaks and magnolias on the banks of a deep bayou, and known as Suburb Saint-Jean. With the first beam came the West Floridian and the Creole out upon the bank below the village. Upon the parson's arm hung a pair of antique saddlebags. Baptiste limped wearily behind. Both his eyes were encircled with broad blue rings, and one cheekbone bore the official impress of every knuckle of Colossus's left hand. The beautiful to take care of somebody had lost his charge. At mention of the Negro he became wild, and half in English, half in the gumbo dialect, said murderous things. Intimidated by Jules to calmness, he became able to speak confidently on one point. He could, would, and did swear that Colossus had gone home to the Florida parishes. He was almost certain. In fact, he thought so. There was a clicking of pulleys as the 3 appeared upon the bayou's margin, and Baptiste pointed out, in the deep shadow of a great oak, the Isabella, moored among the bulrushes and just spreading her sails for departure. Moving down to where she lay, the parson and his friend paused on the bank, loath to say farewell. "Oh, Jules," said the parson, "supposin' Colossus ain't gone home. Oh, Jules, if you'll look him out for me, I'll never forget you. I'll never forget you nohow, Jules. No, Jules, I never will believe he taken that money. Yes, I know all niggers will steal." He set foot upon the gangplank. "But Colossus wouldn't steal from me. Goodbye." "Missy Poisson Jaune," said St-Ange, putting his hand on the parson's arm with genuine affection. "Hold on. You see this money, what I win last night? Well, I win it by a species providence, ain't it?" "There's no tellin'," said the humbled Jones. "Providence moves in a mysterious way his wonders to perform." "Ah!" cried the Creole. "C'est very true. I get this money in the mysterious way. Mais, if I keep this money, you know where it goin' be tonight?" "I really can't say," replied the parson. "Going to the Dev," said the sweetly smiling young man. The schooner captain, leaning against the shrouds, and even Baptiste laughed outright. "Oh, Jules, you mustn't." "Well, then, what I shall do with it?" "Anything," answered the parson. "Better donate it away to some poor man." "Ah, Misty Poisson Jaune, that is what I want. You lost $500. 'Twas me fault." "No, it won't, Jules." "Mais it was." "No." "It was me fault. I swear it was me fault. Mais here is $500. I wish you shall take it. Here, I don't got no use for money. Oh, my faith, Poisson Jaune, you must not begin to cry some more." Parson Jones was choked with tears. When he found voice, he said, "Oh, Jules, 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 my poor, noble, dear, misguided friend, if you had of had a Christian raisin, may the Lord show you your errors better than I can, and bless you for your good intentions. Oh, no, I can't touch that money with a 10-foot pole. It won't rightly got. You must really excuse me, my dear friend, but I can't touch it." St. Ange was petrified. "Goodbye, dear Jules," continued the parson. "I'm in the Lord's hands, and He's very merciful, which I hope and trust you'll find it out. Goodbye." The schooner swung slowly off before the breeze. "Goodbye." St. Ange roused himself. "Poisson Jaune, make me hany out this promise. You never, never, never will come back to New Orleans." "Ah, Jules, the Lord willin', I'll never leave home again." "All right," cried the Creole. "I think He's willin'. Adieu, Poisson Jaune. My faith, you are the so fighting and most religious man as I never saw. Adieu, adieu." Baptiste uttered a cry, and presently ran by his master toward the schooner, his hands full of clods. St. Ange looked just in time to see the sable form of Colossus of Rhodes emerge from the vessel's hold, and the pastor of Smyrna and Bethesda seize him in his embrace. "Oh, Colossus, you outlandish old nigger, thank the Lord, thank the Lord." The little Creole almost wept. He ran down the towpath, laughing and swearing, and making confused allusion to the entire personnel and furniture of the lower regions. By odd fortune, at the moment that St. Ange further demonstrated his delight by tripping his mulatto into a bog, the schooner came brushing along the reedy bank with a graceful curve, the sails flapped, and the crew fell to poling her slowly along. Parson Jones was on the deck, kneeling once more in prayer. His hat had fallen before him. Behind him knelt his slave. In thundering tones he was confessing himself a plumb fool, from whom the conceit had been jolted out, and who had been made to see that even his nigger had the longest head of the two. Colossus clasped his hands and groaned. The parson prayed for a contrite heart. "Oh, yes," cried Colossus. The master acknowledged countless mercies. "That's so," cried the slave. The master prayed that they might still be piled on. "Glory!" cried the black man, clapping his hands. "Pile on!" "And now," continued the parson, "bring this poor backsliding jackace of a parson and this poor old fool nigger back to thar home in peace." "Pray for their money," called Colossus. But the parson prayed for Jules. "Pray for their money," replied the Negro. "And, oh, give thy servant back that there lost money." Colossus rose stealthily and tiptoed by his still shouting master. St. Ange, the captain, the crew, gazed in silent wonder at the strategist. Pausing but an instant over the master's hat to grin an acknowledgment of his beholder's speechless interest, he softly placed in it the faithfully mourned and honestly prayed for Smyrna fund. Then, saluted by the gesticulative, silent applause of St. Ange and the schooner men, he resumed his first attitude behind his roaring master. "Amen!" cried Colossus, meaning to bring him to a close. "Unworthy though I be," cried Jones. "Amen!" reiterated the Negro. "Amen!" said Parson Jones. He rose to his feet, and stooping to take up his hat, beheld the well-known roll. As one stunned, he gazed for a moment upon his slave, who still knelt with clasped hands and rolling eyeballs. But when he became aware of the laughter and cheers that greeted him from both deck and shore, he lifted eyes and hands to heaven and cried like the veriest babe. And when he looked at the roll again and hugged and kissed it, St. Ange tried to raise a second shout, but choked, and the crew fell to their poles. And now up runs Baptiste, covered with slime, and prepares to cast his projectiles. The first one fell wide of the mark. The schooner swung round into a long reach of water, where the breeze was in her favor. Another shout of laughter drowned the maledictions of the muddy men. The sails filled, Colossus of Rhodes, smiling and bowing as hero of the moment, ducked as the main boom swept round, and the schooner, leaning slightly to the pleasant influence, rustled a moment over the bulrushes, and then sped far away down the rippling bayou. Monsieur Jules St. Ange stood long, gazing at the receding vessel as it now disappeared, now reappeared beyond the tops of the high undergrowth. But when an arm of the forest hid it finally from sight, he turned townward, followed by that fagged-out spaniel, his servant, saying, as he turned, "Baptiste, Miché, you know what I goin' do with this money?" "No, monsieur." "Well, you can strike me dead if I don't goin' to pay all my debts. Allons!" He began a merry little song to the effect that his sweetheart was a wine bottle, and master and man, leaving care behind, returned to the picturesque Rue Royale. The ways of Providence are indeed strange. In all Parson Jones' afterlife, amid the many painful reminiscences